Hello, everybody. I'm Ed Parcaut, the host of Helping the Brave. Let's bring in our guest today. Ben Vernon. Is Vernon correct?
Yes, Vernon.
Okay, just making sure. My wife's name's Marcia,
Yeah.
Marcia, and you would call it Marcia, but it's Marcia. All right. I only ask one question, the same each week is what service were you in and why?
I joined the Air Force right out of high school. My goal was to be a pilot. I wanted to go to the Air Force Academy because that's what they said, where all the slots are available. And so they said that my SAT scores weren't as high as what they were looking for, but if you go enlisted, then they have all these slots available, and it's a lot easier to get in, which I think is true.
Right.
But once I got in, I was like, well, that kind of sucked. And that was just basic. I mean, I don't think Air Force basic training is really hard, but it was just like, do I want to do something like that for 4 years? Like, that doesn't sound enjoyable. So just push that off. So with that, I picked your 8 jobs that you could pick. I picked all jobs that had short tech schools. And so security forces was one of them. And I didn't even know what security forces was. And it sounded cool in the paragraph that it was talking about. It sounded pretty combat type short tech school. And so I got into it, didn't even know what it was. And then I didn't even do like really what their job is. My first 4 years, I did nuclear security in Malmstrom Air Force Base. And so I would drive out and protect a gravel parking lot. And that was about it. I ended up getting put into the convoy section, and that's where whenever the nuclear warheads expire or any of the components are messed up, they will bring one from base out to the site or reverse. Sometimes they'll replace one or they'll just bring it back. So I did that for 4 years, and then I really hated being in Montana, and it's really cold, and it's just not my thing. So I found out about the canine program, and I started down that path. And I did that for 2 years, and that was how I ended my Air Force career, was in canine.
Now, were you always a animal lover? I'm just saying.
I always liked dogs.
Okay.
My parents don't like animals, and so I never owned a dog. So my first dog was actually my military working dog.
Well, parents don't like animals because they usually have to take care of them when the kids do.
Yeah.
That's why parents don't like animals. Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's like my wife never had a dog, and I got her a dog from when somebody was losing a house, and it was her first dog, and that was the best dog for her. When she ran, it was there protecting her. She'd hit her in the hand to let her know somebody was coming up behind her. It was trained so well. And since then, she's been a dog person, and it's dogs are great. But again, back to your whole thing. As a kid, I had every animal under the sun because my grandparents had a dairy, and so do so I've had every animal. So I didn't want animals when I was adult because I already had them.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
So
they're a lot of work.
Oh, aren't they ever? And I have an American Bully now who I found on the trail. What a needy freaking dog, man. I thought you think you're going to get some tough dog, and they're like the weakest dog, and then someone's abused them. But they're great dogs,
Yeah.
All right. So you got into the canine, and how long were you? So you were in the service for 6 years?
6.5.
Okay. And during that period of time, so why did you get out after 2 years of doing canine? Was that you just time
I was the biggest lifer out there. I would tell everybody you're an idiot for getting out, and this is the best thing you could ever do. And so I ended up going to a Secret Service mission at Trump's golf course, and that was a sweet gig. I was just searching vehicles, hanging out basically on a resort. And while I was there, I was talking to the canine handlers for the Secret Service, and they're asking all the other DoD handlers, like, hey, what are you going to do when you get out? What's your plan? And I was just like, I don't want to talk to these guys. Like I would talk to them and hang out, but I didn't want to hear their spiel because I was like, I'm going to do the 20, get out, do my thing. And I got cornered by a guy, and he asked me the whole thing. And it turns out he was actually a recruiter as well. And so he gave me this whole spiel, and it was like, you get 30% retirement, which you're making 100 grand. So you're automatically making more in retirement than you would with Air Force. And then basically he's running through everything. Like, you don't have to deploy, you don't have to PCS, like you're always going to be in DC, like you're just in one central thing. So it's just like boom, 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 like so many things. I was like, man, this is so much better than what I'm doing. And I could do canine my entire career once I got in. Versus Air Force, once you're in E5, you're kind of done. So I was like, I think this is it. So I started my process. This was in June of 2020, and I put in my application with USA Jobs in like June, July, and I got out in December. Or I left Arizona in December. I officially was out in January. So during that process, we moved in with my parents, my wife and I, and just hanging out, because at any moment I could get sent to Secret Service school. So while I was just in the limbo stage, I didn't want to buy a house or rent an apartment or do whatever. And so during that time, we just hung out with my parents, and my dad's an assistant pastor of a decent sized church, and so they have a lot of people that they're friends with in that area. And so my mom shared on Facebook that, hey, Ben trains dogs, and I didn't think people would pay for it. I didn't have a dog growing up. I grew up in an area that you would like tie your dog out to a tree, like that was a normal thing. And so to think that people would not only like have dogs and like care, but like pay for training was out of my comprehension. So it started picking up, and I was really making about the same that I was in the Air Force, and I was working like 10 hours a week. And I was like, this is awesome. This is really, I get to do something that I love, and it's paying the bills. Like, this is really cool. So I was like, if the Secret Service doesn't work out, I think this will be my ticket. And I ended up getting to a point really where I was like, I don't even know if I want to do the Secret Service, because it was a year-long process from start to finish. And it's really hard to stay motivated of like, hey, you're going to do this. Hey, you're going to do this. Hey, you're going to do this. And then you're just waiting, living with your parents. So I ended up going to take my polygraph, and they said I failed. I was like, how did I fail? He said that I lied about my involvement with serious crimes against people and serious crimes against things. And I was like, what does that mean? And he said it could be, he's listing off all these crimes that I could have been involved with. And like, it was like rape, domestic assault, assault and battery. He's listing off like all these like egregious crimes. And I was like, okay, what's the serious crimes against things? And he's like, tax evasion, tax fraud, tax embezzlement. I was like, I make like 30 grand a year, dude. Like, I don't know what you expect from me. But so I just took that as that was just God's will of me just, this wasn't it. This was the door closing, and this is something I need to moving on from. And so I was honestly pretty grateful for it, and just thinking, I don't even know if I want to do this anymore. So we had been looking at where to live, where to move, what we would like to be in. So we thought about moving back to Arizona. We were looking at Texas.
Where are we at right now? Where were you?
So stationed in Tucson. We moved to North Carolina.
That's where North Carolina were your parents. That's why I want to know where you were.
Yeah. So
one more question, Ben, before you keep going. Did you grow up? Where did you grow up?
King, North Carolina. It's
okay, so you're used to the humidity then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I was in Montana.
I'm in Modesto, California. I was stationed at San Diego. I went to Texas for 3 months and back to Camp Pendleton. I don't do well with humidity, so that's
it's brutal. It's brutal for sure. Yeah. So I was in Montana for 4 years, and I was like, I never want to see snow again. And so my wife was wanting to move to like South Dakota and Maine. I'm like, have you ever shoveled snow? Have you ever had to like scrape your windshield? I promise you don't want to go there. So looked up dog friendly cities, and Tampa, Florida was rated #1. So July was whenever I got denied from the Secret Service. And in September, we moved down here. We didn't know a single person down here, no friends, no family, no nothing. We've never been here. We came like a month before that and just kind of drove through and found a place to live. And so we just moved out as quick as we could. So we've been here since, and started Vernon Dog Training and just going from there.
Well, just to move for dogs. I want to back up to your service if you don't mind, because it is helping.
Yeah.
I saw a little thing that you had an incident in 2015, because I'm really big on PTSD, getting mental health. I do what they call the Operation Firewalk, which is an event where you come to it. It's a motivational. At the end of the night, you walk across coals, kind of like a Tony Robbins event, to get you past that, whatever's doing that. And it's helped out a lot of vets. My goal was one vet last year to save one life, and we did more than that. And so we're doing it again this year, May 3rd, 2025. So what's the, if you don't want to kind of get in, talk about that a little bit.
On what?
It said something that happened in 2015. Did you have something? Were you injured in a routine call, or is that somebody else? Was that not you?
That wasn't me.
That's funny. It's because it brought it all up from your stuff. Anyway,
Sure.
Go on. We'll move on. All right. So when you were in this Air Force, nothing happened while you were a handler. Then they got the wrong information. They got it for somebody else. Sorry about that. So how long did it take you when you were in the service to learn how to train dogs?
So they take you. The DoD has the Air Force runs the dog training, everything. So dog procurement, dog ownership, the dog training side, and then the handler training side. So that's all. It's in San Antonio. That's at Lackland Air Force Base.
Is that for all services, like two?
Yes. So all four branches. So in my class, they had Marines, Navy, Air Force. And the Army had it separately because the Army has an actual canine MOS where that's all they do.
Because I interviewed a guy who was 57 years old who went in the service as a veterinarian for 10 years, and he was deployed 4 times, and he was talking about how he was in the Army. And so what I'm hearing is Army has their own thing and Air Force has their own thing. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah. So the Army runs the veterinarian portion.
Okay.
And the Air Force runs the dog side.
The training of them and stuff.
Yeah. So everybody else is included, but the Air Force just owns it, and they're the parent of it, I guess.
Gotcha.
So with the Army, they only do the veteran. Like the Army's the only one that has veterinarians. Air Force, Navy, whatever. They don't do that at all. So it's strictly. So the course is about 3 months, and then you're learning on the job every day. So then you're also learning and adjusting based on so you're assigned one dog, like this is your dog. Mm-hmm. So when I first got to Davis Monthan Air Force Base, I was assigned military working dog Caro. And Caro was a drug detection dog, and he was a patrol dog. So he could search for and find and bite bad guys. So that was my dog. Every day I came to work, this is my dog. I'm the only one that works him. I'm the only one that does anything with him. And then from there, I got switched to a bomb detection dog. And I was on him for 9-10 months. And then I switched to a brand new dog that was a bomb detection as well. So you're constantly learning, and you're constantly having to adjust based on the dog that you have. Because what does suck about the program is, so I started and I had Frankie was my second dog, and I'm working every day on this dog, trying to get him better, trying to make sure that he's performing at the top, because I'm deploying with this dog potentially, and I'm going to be searching for explosives, and your whole battalion is potentially coming after me, following me in my footsteps. So it's a big deal. So there's a lot of things that go in the line. So you have to know this dog intimately in every detail. So I'm coming down on my off time. I'm doing all this stuff to make sure that he's like good to go. And then they say, okay, now you're going to be transitioning to your third dog. And it goes, okay, here you go. This is now your dog, Ed. And so
why did they do that? Is that just normal for them to do that?
Yeah, so it's part of it. It could be that you're PCSing. It could be that you're
No.
getting out. It could be just in general, like, hey, this dog isn't flowing with you, and you guys aren't a good team. It could be that um, this dog is really well fit with um, somebody who's more timid, who's more laid back. There's so many different things. It's dogs are very similar with people that they all have different personalities, and so trying to match you with this dog. So me and you could meet and we could hate each other, never talk. We don't know anything about each other, but it's like I'm just like, man, Ed sucks. I hate that guy,
How
or
that
vice versa. So dogs are very similar, and so we just may not vibe. And so you can try to push that and make it work, or you can be like, hey, this isn't working, and let's switch and put this dog with you and switch around. So there's lots of different factors that go into it, but that is probably the hardest thing. I leave, I get out of the military. Those dogs belong to Davis Monthan Air Force Base,
right.
so they stay there. So you're having to leave the dogs. So that's a big bummer.
The reason I was trying to get with the training, because you went from never having an animal or a
Mhm.
dog to now train dogs. So,
Yeah.
so I'm just trying to see how I know military service because I was in the Navy. I was a corpsman. I was EMT. I did everything in that training that they'd have you go through is so much faster than any other training. Is- was it just the fact that you're able to learn so much in a short period of time that they taught you on how to train dogs?
So just like with anything, I mean, like when you go through boot camp,
Right.
you get out and like I'm sure it was good training, but like nobody's gonna look at you like you're anything special when you get to your unit. Like you're just like, okay, congrats, dude, you went through boot camp. You now have to prove yourself, and so once you get to your job, that's when you start like getting your reps. You said you're a corpsman, so I mean, like how many times do you have to insert a needle in somebody's vein properly before you're proficient at it? Like it's hundreds and
Never.
thousands. You never did it?
We'll
Okay.
get into my
Well,
story later, but it's about you today.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So with dog training, um, I think actually that a lot of because they're trying to make it so basic, I think a lot of the actual training from the course was kind of behind, and I don't think it was really that great looking back on it. Because part of it is they're trying to fit in so much too. You're trying to fit in detection, where you're searching for explosives. They're trying to fit in you're searching for people and having your dog bite that person. You're having to go through, think of the legalities of if I release my dog to go bite somebody, what can happen with that? Like there's so many things that can go wrong, and so you're really getting like so much, like so little out of everything, and so you're like a jack of all trades, a master of none, and so actually once I got to my first base, I had a great trainer, Josh Reed. That dude's phenomenal. Um, he would just put you through the most stressful thing possible. He was constantly yelling at you, constantly just like berating you, uh, and the point of that was like you need to be able to handle anything because, like I said earlier, if I'm searching a roadway, there could be an entire battalion coming behind me, and so if I mess up, if I don't recognize what's happening, and then also like I'm leading the way, so I might have to tell an officer off and say like, no sir, we're not doing that. So um, once I got to Davis Monthan, that's where I feel like I really excelled, and it was actually really cool because you never really know like how proficient you are, how good you are, and you may even be like second guessing yourself like, yeah, I don't think I'm actually that great. But then when you see yourself around other people that are doing the same job and you're like, oh man, I'm actually like really good. And that I got to see that whenever I went on a Secret Service mission, and I was looking at all these other canine handlers from the DoD and going like, "Man, you guys suck." And it was because of that standard that my trainer had and what he was putting us through in the different situations. And so ultimately, who I am as a trainer was because of that guy. And then from there, there's so many people out there that are training dogs professionally that are really good. and they're able to convince, because it's not just like, can you train a dog, but how can I train you, Ed, to know what to do with your dog, with your bully, to make sure that you know what to do long term. Because if I can't transfer my knowledge of what I have to you, then it doesn't matter what I do. So that's one of the biggest things, is just learning how to communicate and learning how can I convince you what I know so that you can implement it yourself.
Yeah, wish you could teach me how to get this American bully to move.
To move?
Well, I mean, as
Was he?
they just he gets sidetracked, right? You
Yeah.
go, you go on a walk, you're coming back, and then he just decides to go on his own. Where like we also have a Rottweiler. She doesn't do that.
Mhm.
She listens. He never listens.
Yeah, I don't know if it's what you're talking about, but anytime that your dog deviates or strays off, like if you have them on a leash, I would continue walking with them. And you're showing them like, we're not going to stop and just goof off and do whatever. I think there's a time for your dog to sniff and your dog to be a dog, but
right. I'm talking no on a walk. On a walk, we have a leash. We keep going. I'm just talking when we're at our cabin, they're off leash, and instead of following me like
yeah,
he's supposed to, he just decides to. And I hate to say this, but they're not the smartest dog in the world.
no,
They're more
no. There's definitely
yeah.
ranges, and they excel in other areas.
Yeah. I mean, very loving dog to a certain point. But it's again training and doing it's consistency. It's just like children. You got to be consistent with what you do, and most people are inconsistent on training their dogs and staying with the same thing over and over again. And if I'm
And there's also small things too that like you don't recognize that you're doing. So one thing that I tell people is, I tell people to use a release marker. So your dog should hold a position, let's say a sit, until you tell them that they can not be in the sit. So I say the word free. So you would say, for me, I would say Phoenix, that's my dog's name, sit. And then whenever I'm done, I would say free. And then he can do whatever he wants. So what happens is people say free, and they'll move their hands in front of them. And they like open their hands up. So free every time. Boom. So then your dog is very visual. Your dog's always watching. And so you may put them in a sit, and then you're talking, and you're like, yeah, I caught a fish, and it was this big. And you move your hands in front of you, and then your dog breaks. And then now you're mad at it because you're like, hey, I told you to do this thing, and now you're not doing it. So that's just a small example, but you're constantly doing stuff. So there's one podcast I listened to a long time ago, dog training. The guy was saying every interaction you have with your dog is positive or negative. There is no in between. You're teaching your dog something every time that you interact with him, whether you're verbalizing it or you're physically showing that with your body language. So it's really important to be intentional and understand like what you're doing with your dog.
What's the so a lot of people have dogs who bark a lot, and then they're barking, they yell at the dog at the same time to shut up. And I heard that that's basically you're telling the dog to keep barking because now you're barking like they are.
Yeah, I don't think it's effective. If the only way that would be potentially effective is that you scare your dog, and if they're scared, then they're less likely to do the thing potentially. But I don't think that's necessarily going to happen because, at least with the majority of dogs. So one quick thing that happens is all dogs are afraid of the mailman, or they hate the mailman. That's a stereotype you hear.
My dog, the one we have, the Rottweiler. I mean, my American bully doesn't care, but he'll support her when she starts barking.
Yeah. So what happens is, I'm your mailman. I don't know you. I don't care about you. I don't know you have a dog. I don't care that you have a dog. I have 100 houses to hit, and then I get to go home or whatever their schedule is. And you ordered a package off Amazon. I walk up, I drop the package off, I turn around and leave. I probably have AirPods in. I can't hear anything. I'm listening to music. But what does your dog see through the window? Here's some creepy guy coming up on my house. So they start off and they go, a really light growl. And so then they did a thing. I turn around and leave. And so then they think I did that. And they go, I did that. Look at me. And so then tomorrow, you guys order another package. And so I show up again. Same thing. I can't hear you. I drop the package off. I turn around and leave. But as they see me coming up, they're like, hey, I thought I told you not to come back here again. And so now they do, because they have more confidence. Well, now it's a little higher ground. And then tomorrow it's a bark. And then A week later, they're jumping at the door and they're scratching and they're knocking the blinds off. So it also gets to a point where now I see it and now I start to react because I'm sure your Rottweiler or your bully have really deep, loud barks, which is scary. And so I don't know if your door is open, maybe, there's lots of things that could happen. So then I jump back. Well, now your dog goes up. Now it made you. Now you're scared of me. And it gets worse and worse. And every time the dog wins because I turn around and I leave. So what you have to do is teach them that, because your dogs don't understand that I'm a mailman. You ordered something, I'm doing you a service. And so they just see some creep and then they think that they're in control of that. So you have to set up scenarios with them to show them that that doesn't matter. That doesn't do anything. Another thing you can do is with the door knocking or the doorbell. Those things only happen when somebody is at the home. So it's a predictor that somebody's going to come in, which would then be the same thing that we're talking about, the mailman. So you need to teach them that those things don't matter. There's a process to that, but ultimately, if you can just knock or play the doorbell or do whatever on repeat, that's one simple thing that you can do casually without really any effort. Just turn on YouTube, type in door knocking doorbell, and just play that on loop while you're gone, while you go to work, and just let it roll. Because then your dog's desensitized to it, and they don't know or care anything about it.
Yeah, because our it's a Rottweiler. She goes crazy.
Yeah,
just jumps across couches now, just because you said, because she's the one's been going after the mailman. She's like, I saved you guys constantly from this mailman.
Yeah, and then it gets to the point where they're like, "Hey, dummies, do you guys not care? Okay, if you guys don't care, then I will. I guess I'll do the job." They have reels and different things talking about, like, joking about whenever you see your wife cleaning, now you have to be worried because she's probably in a bad mood that you didn't help or something. It's kind of like that, where your dog's like, "Okay, guys, I'll do it," and they're not happy about it, and now they're terrified, and so now they think that they have to watch the door. That's another thing too, is people talk about their dog likes to look out the window. Most of the time, their dog doesn't like to look out the window. They're terrified, and they're looking for a threat. So I tell people, imagine I get on the phone and I go with a deep, raspy AI voice and say, "Ed, I'm on my way to your house, and I give your address. I'm going to kill you. I'll be there in 15 minutes." You're going to be terrified. You're going to be like looking out all the windows, have all your guns ready to go, because I said I'm coming. And so your dog doesn't know when it's coming, and they just think something bad's going to happen, and they have to protect the home, protect you guys. So
how do you break them with that?
Desensitizing them to the sound is really important. Not letting them go to the door is another thing. So setting up scenarios where you have them on leash. So
in the house.
Yeah. So what I tell people is, like, you have your dog and start doing, like, just walking them on a leash, having them go to place, having them do different commands. And then have your wife or whoever at the door ringing the doorbell or knocking occasionally. And you're just showing them, hey, this doesn't matter. You can record the sound, get your phone out, film the doorbell or film the knocking or whatever, and just play that on repeat. You can play it on a low sound as well, and you can even play it and mix it while every time that they eat, they're hearing the doorbell, and that way you're creating it to be a positive scenario to where your dogs are looking at this as like, hey, it's a good thing. The Pavlov's theory, you ring the bell, they drooled. So if you can turn that into, hey, every time you hear this sound, it's actually a good thing, then that's beneficial. So you're just counter conditioning it and making it to where they're not scared. So that's the simplest way to explain it.
Gotcha. Thanks for the advice. And now that you're on here, because when we talked before we got going, you were saying that you're trying to get the word out about your training, and you're in Tampa, right? So
Tampa, Florida, yes.
Florida. And are you doing virtual trainings? How are you doing stuff? Are you doing all over the country, or are you only looking local?
Currently, I'm only doing local stuff. Potentially, if there is a need and desire, virtual is an option. But you can find me at Vernon Dog Training on anywhere, Instagram and YouTube,
And your
whatever.
website's vernondogtraining.com, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Ben, anything else you want to talk about before we go?
I think it covers it.
This is your job. I don't do it. I just, the other problem with the Rottweiler is she has a rare syndrome that is a thyroid thing. So she's on so much medication that it's her,
Yeah.
everything's messed up. And so, she'll sit there and think she hears something when nothing's there. And so there's more issues than just a normal dog that has to be trained. So
Yeah. No, that's difficult. It is crazy, like what dogs can get. I remember somebody told me, I did a consult with a girl and she was telling me that her dog has hyper or hypothyroidism. And I was like, how is that possible?
yeah. See, I was raised on a dairy when I was younger. So,
Okay. That makes
we
more
didn't,
sense.
we didn't take animals to the vet. We did.
Yeah.
Now it's like we spend so much money on animals. It's, it's a lot of.
Oh, it's crazy. It's crazy to hear like stories of like how expensive surgeries are and how much people put in. I had a girl respond to one of my TikToks and she was saying, I'm pretty sure she said she paid like 30 grand or more for her cattle dog to have a surgery.
Yeah.
It might even be more than that.
Yeah, there's insurance out there for animals. Go get it before you find anything wrong with them. We have it for both our dogs, but the one that it was 20 grand to find out what was wrong with her. Luckily, we only paid 10% at the time, so it wasn't so bad. But
yeah, that's doable.
Yeah. Since then, that insurance. So when I found George, he got on. He was at 70/30. So they'd cut the policy down after, I think, our dog, the first one, because they spent so much money on it. And so now, and she's at 50/50 now, the first dog. So they are changing policies and they cancel a lot of policies. But luckily, my wife works for Kaiser and she gets it through her whole cafeteria plan.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. Ben, it was nice having you on the show, learning about your service and what you're doing for dogs and actually now for homeowners more than anything else. I think people don't realize how what you take on when you pick up an animal. It's just like a kid. Yeah.
Yeah. You got to be really dedicated.
Yeah. Again, thank you so much for being on the show today. I appreciate you.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure.